this February 28th, Wednesday, NBA Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today using promo code NBA SGPN and then go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/dog to enter our bonus contest. 5 winners will receive shirts, hats, and a $50 SGPN gift card. And we're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Wednesday, February the 28th. Currently 12:21 on the East Coast, here to get into our NBA player props for the Wednesday night schedule. It's been a little bit since we did the NBA Propcast, but now with the dust settled on the NFL season, we got a little bit more time to crank out these pods. So hopefully we can do it at least twice a week. Look for us on Wednesdays and Fridays going forward. But joining me as usual on the NBA Propcast and on the NFL Propcast, I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What's up, excited to be back, man. Like you said, we took a little hiatus, got some other things going on, but no, like you said, no football. Football is over. Patrick Mahomes does it again, and we'll be back to talking about some basketball, especially as we ramp up. It's an exciting time for basketball, man. We always talk about, like really trying to find motivation to get behind some of these props, no matter what the numbers look like and all the analytics. So excited, man, as we come down to, down the stretch for the NBA season before we start the playoffs, for sure.
Yeah, man, a handful of games left here for a lot of these teams, and it's still a lot to be determined. As far as playoff seedings and all that good stuff in the association. And, this is a time where we usually see the contenders separating themselves from the bottom feeders and teams that are quote unquote tanking or whatever you may want to call it. And also, guys that are dealing with some injuries that, we probably haven't touched on since we last did the NBA Propcast here. But I think the bigger news here, we'll touch on some of that stuff and then we'll get into our player props here, Chris. But the one big one that came down this week was going to be Trae Young missing about 4 weeks here for the Atlanta Hawks. He's dealing with a finger injury. Did have surgery on it, I believe, on Tuesday, so he'll be sidelined for about 4 weeks here. And I've talked about this a lot. I kind of want to get your perspective on it as well. That we know what a great scorer Trae Young is. I mean, if you watch the guy play, he can score from any point of the floor. Does a great job of distributing the basketball as well. A lot of times we talk about his assist props on the NBA Propcast and also on the NBA pod as well here. But I feel like the roster that they do have constructed right now, Chris, I think they'll be okay without him. And I kind of dug into the numbers a little bit deeper from a defensive standpoint. And they actually are a better defensive team. Maybe it's not an obvious statement here, but they're a better defensive team without Trae Young on the floor. We know that, he's one of those guards that doesn't play a whole lot of defense. He's a very offensive-minded player. But, with DeJounte Murray now captaining the offense now and initiating the offense, I think that this team is going to be okay in this 4 weeks without him. I know they have a bit of a tough schedule coming up, but there are some winnable games in that span. And you take a look right now, they're in that, I believe, the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference, in that play-in tournament bracket, where we usually do expect them to be over the past several seasons, and then just go out and score 140 plus points in that play-in tournament game, and then find their way into the playoffs. But do you have any reaction when you heard about this news about Trae Young and what maybe the rest of the season holds with the Atlanta Hawks team?
Yeah, for one, I think it gives us an amazing opportunity to DeJounte Murray, to prove that he can be, a number one guy, because they brought him there, kind of paired him with Trae Young, of course. But, just kind of piggybacking off of what you said, man, I think, I wanted a bet that I didn't make last night on my short list, if I was kicking myself as soon as the first quarter ended, was the Atlanta Hawks, man. You got to fade Utah on the road every single chance you get, especially if it's a close spread. And I think Atlanta might have closed like a -2. And I think it was pretty telling. I wasn't super convinced, but it was pretty telling when, what they were able to do to Orlando. That was the first game, of course, without Trae Young on Sunday. Orlando was on the second leg of a back-to-back. Of course, no Paolo Banchero was in that game. But I mean, I think that game they might have closed it like a 1-point favorite. But we're talking about two convincing wins, 17 points, and then yesterday 27 points. Atlanta never gets that much separation because they never play defense like that, right? 92 points and 97 points. And we know Utah, not a great defensive team, but they typically can score 97 points. Utah Jazz, that's absolutely, incredible from from that defensive perspective, So I think there will be a buy on in certain spots. I'm looking at the upcoming schedule, 2 games back-to-back in Brooklyn. Those seem like winnable games. We know the Brooklyn Nets are kind of reeling still, even though Kevin Ollie did get his first win. They got absolutely mollywopped last night. But then it does get a little more difficult. You got New York, you got Cleveland, but then Memphis. That should be a winnable game. So I think you're right, I think Atlanta they will go on the road because a lot of their most recent games have been at home. But it'll be certain spots you definitely want to back them coming up, in my opinion, as well. With them, having some motivation to play well. And like we talked about, some of those other players kind of stepping up. I mean, they still have, like tons of guys that can go out there, score the ball, that can defend. They'll get Onyeka Okongwu back. Clint Capella just returned from injury. You got Bogdanovich, Sadiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter, who should be fresh because he's missed some time. So, I mean, they still got plenty of guys out there, and the ball moves a little bit more too. Not that Trae Young is a ball stopper because he's one of the best assist guys in the league, but the other guys can get to step up. And I think that was the quote that came out of the locker room. DeJounte said, we still got plenty of guys on this team that's capable of stepping up, and that's what we're going to have to do. So it sounds like they kind of believe in themselves. I'm definitely going to pick and choose my spots to be able to back them as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that when you take a look at this roster for the Atlanta Hawks, like you mentioned, right, they have guys that can put the ball inside the basket. Jalen Johnson has just been an absolute fantastic player this season for this Atlanta Hawks team. So again, it's for them, buying in on the defensive side where a lot of times this team has struggled. So I think they're going to be okay. We'll definitely keep an eye out, especially for player props for a perspective for the Atlanta Hawks in the absence of Trae Young for at least another 3 to 4 weeks here for this team. Chris, anything else that's kind of stood out to you as, around the association as far as maybe player performances or player injuries and guys maybe stepping up before we get into our player props?
Not that really. I would say that really comes to top of my mind. How about Luka though? This dude continues to. I mean, I look up last night. I'm like, all right, they're playing Cleveland. Cleveland's defense is pretty good. He has 30 points in the third quarter with 4 minutes left. I'm like, wow. I mean, granted they lost the game, but I mean, Luka's been absolutely putting on a show, even with the additions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. Interested to see what happens in that game tonight. But yeah, Luka's been pretty spectacular. I think Luka probably stands out just a tad bit more than everybody else right now. I think he's leading the league in points, and it's not even really close. This dude is he's doing his own thing this year, man, and it's starting to look a little crazy at times. So shout out to Luka.
Well, it is Luka's birthday today, Chris, so keep that in mind in Toronto here. So maybe he does go out and put out another performance like he has been throughout, or since I could say post All-Star break, for the Dallas Mavericks. All right, Chris, before we do dive into our player props here for the Wednesday schedule in the association, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. It's pretty simple. The pick'em game, pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's games for a chance to win big. You can win up to 100 times your money in a single night. Pick between 2 and 5 players to build and pick'em entry, and can also make rival picks with between 2 players against each other. We've been doing a Underdog Fantasy entry on the NBA pod every single day. More have cashed than they have not. So if you haven't already tuned in on the NBA pod and gotten involved with us, you're really missing out here. And again, there's still an opportunity. We're in a competition with the other shows on the network to get the most signups from our fans, but we can't do it without our fans. And if you're listening to this NBA pod or in this NBA Propcast, do us a favor, come join us. Use promo code NBA SGPN and get your first deposit doubled as well as an instant pick'em special. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store, and don't forget to register with our promo code NBA SGPN to get your first deposit doubled of up to $100 as well as an instant pick'em special. Must be 18 years or older and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpg.com sgpgambling.org. And also a bonus contest. SGPN is teaming up with Underdog to give you an even more of a bonus. Sign up between now and the end of the month. You have an extra day because it is a leap year. We do have a February 29th this year. 5 winners will receive an Underdog hat, Underdog shirt, and a $50 SGPN gift card. Sign up today using promo code SGPN and then go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/dog to enter the contest for your chance to win. All right, let's get into our player props here tonight. Chris, why don't you lead us off, man? What do you got for your first player prop?
So as I look down, just to check the injury news, because we do got quite a teams on the first leg of back-to-backs. I see just the update for our viewers and for you as well. Luka probable, which is great. Zion listed questionable, as I kind of expected. Same thing with Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum as well. Derek Lively listed as probable. So just some injury news. Wanted to kind of make sure I shared that. First one up, if I'm going to, I see, shout out to Bang Out. He put this in the chat, and it was something that I was already kind of looking at. I'm actually going to scrap. I had a play in that game, but I'm going to scrap the play that I had, and I'm going to just go straight to Kawhi Leonard. He's talking about Kawhi. He likes his points and assists over 29.5. I actually like his points over 25.5 in this game. I think it's a big game for Kawhi. The Clippers need a confidence boost and win. Of course, there'll be no Paul George in the game. He's already been ruled out. Kawhi has not done extremely well since the All-Star break, just 21.3 points per game. He's getting up 16 shot attempts. We know he's super efficient, shooting 54% still, but in two of the 3 games, he's actually had Paul George there as well. And Paul George, that's 14 more shot attempts, if that's going to be distributed, amongst this team. So, I look at this Laker team, they really struggle against that mid-range shot. We see, whether it's Devin Booker in the last game against Phoenix or whether it's, Kevin Durant in the last game, they really struggle defensively, giving up 123 points per game in the last 3 games, post All-Star break as well. I think also on the first leg of a back-to-back, the Lakers don't play well on the first leg of back-to-back games either. And I think the Clippers really want to tie the series up. So ball should be in Kawhi Leonard's hands a lot is what I'm thinking here, And I think the number is already juiced to the over -125. I couldn't talk anybody off of 26.5. But I do think that that's the right play in this one. Outside of the Lakers defense being really, really poor, they're also, still top 10 in pace over the last few games after the All-Star break. And we know going into the All-Star break, they were actually top 5 in pace. So the Lakers will still try to run fast up and down the floor. That's something that they've been doing. No Jared Vanderbilt really kind of puts a monkey wrench in being able to slow down somebody like Kawhi Leonard. They will get Cam Reddish back tonight. And you also have Christian Wood doesn't really factor in, but I just feel like it'll be a tough matchup for the Lakers. LeBron James won't want to guard Kawhi Leonard all game tonight. So I look for Kawhi to have a big night, especially plus because they get tomorrow off and the Lakers don't. So coming off a loss, I do like the Clippers to bounce back, and I think it's going to be a big Kawhi game. So give me Kawhi over 25.5 points, inspired by our man in the chat, Bang Out.
This is one of the first plays I played yesterday, Kawhi Leonard. I got it at 24.5, but I like this all the way up to 26.5. And there's a lot of the reasons that you did mention, right? I know that 24.5 was a little bit of a key number, but I'm not going to give out a play here that we only think that's going to have an edge by 1 point. So I think I went back at number 1, like you mentioned, right? Paul George is going to be out for this game. So in 4 games this season, Kawhi Leonard has scored at least 27 points in 3 out of the 4 matchups without Kawhi Leonard this season. And if you also went back and if you got that 24.5 number, 10 of the 14 he had gone over this number against Lakers in the last 14 head-to-head meetings. But I mean, you mentioned it, Chris, right? It's going to be a volume thing for Kawhi Leonard in this game. And I know they haven't been playing really well over the, since the All-Star break. I know they got that win against the Grizzlies, but didn't cover the number. So I feel like this is a game where Kawhi Leonard, I think he steps up going up against obviously the crosstown rivals in the Lakers here. So it's going to be a shot volume thing. I think that I really don't think there's a guy on this team that can really stay in front of Kawhi. The thing with Kawhi is that he's so efficient, man. Like he makes it look so effortless out there. Like when he's shooting the shot or getting to the basket, I just think it's easy for Kawhi Leonard. So I do like his points prop to go over. I also do like his rebounds in this game here, Chris. It's at 6.5. Lakers haven't done a really great job of rebounding the basketball. I know they have obviously Anthony Davis, who pretty much cleans up the boards. LeBron has his nights as well. But also in the 4 games without Paul George in the lineup, Kawhi Leonard's had at least 8 rebounds in each of those matchups. So their numbers at 6.5 right now. So if you want to play those separately, if you want to play a combo of points and rebounds to go over, I know Bengal mentioned he likes the assist to go over 29.5, but also do like his rebounds here tonight. So Kawhi Leonard over 25.5 points, over 6.5 rebounds. And if you want to pair those together, I believe that number is 32.5 for Kawhi here tonight. So yeah, I'm 100% with you here, Chris. All over Kawhi Leonard on his stats here for tonight against the Lakers. So glad we're in agreement about that one. So matching up on the first one here, let's get over to your next one. Chris, what do you got?
So we'll go to another late game. I'm looking at Jokic in the last game. I like his points as well. I typically like to come on here and give out some unders, but I like a few overs today. So we'll go Nikola Jokic over 26.5 points as well. Not a lot of juices, minus 111 here. And it's for a couple different reasons. So first thing I looked at when I was handicapping this, was just the small 3-game sample size. I looked at Denver. The Kings actually led me to this. So Denver has actually just a small 3-game sample, but you can go back a little bit farther as well. They're actually leading the league in points in the paint at 68 per game. I bet you couldn't guess, who's actually giving up the most points in the paint. That would be the Sacramento Kings.
Shocker.
64.7, in the last 3 games. We look at Bam. He just dominated his team, 28 points on 11 for 18 shooting versus them. And that was actually a home game. Zubac also just had 16 points on 8 for 9 shooting as well. So really efficient centers. We know that Jokic is one of the most efficient centers as well. And I went in and kind of looked at his shot zone as well. If not that, just for confirmation, we know that Jokic shoots a lot of points and, he gets a lot of attempts at the rim, but he's averaging nearly 7 attempts per game in the last few games before the All-Star break and after that are in the shot zone that's less than 5 feet from the basket post All-Star break, shooting 80% in the restricted area as well. He's coming off back-to-back games where he had 32 and 29 versus Golden State and Portland. Sacramento has also beat Denver 3 times as well. So maybe you get a little extra motivation because this is a triple revenge spot for the Denver Nuggets here as well. And this is the cherry on top. If he's actually struggled to score the ball against them this season, just 23 and 15 points in the last 2 meetings. And Sacramento's keep catching Denver in the rest disadvantage spot. So a couple of the games that they played, Denver's been playing on the second leg of a back-to-back. Now you got a rested Denver team at home. Looks like they're gunning for it. If they've won 3 straight, covered all 3 numbers, all of them been by 15 points or more as well since the All-Star break. So I'm looking for Jokic to keep it going here tonight. I like him over 26.5 points.
Yeah, look, he's been a monster coming out of the All-Star break. And I don't know if it's all the conversation about MVP or whatever the case might be, but Nikola Jokic has been an absolute monster. He's averaging 22 points, 11.8 rebounds, 12.4 assists over the last 5 games. But you would look at the 2 last games, 29 points, 32 points. And I think for this game, you just take a look at the numbers. Sacramento has won and covered all 3 games this season against the Denver Nuggets. And I think that you don't want to get swept in a season series here. So I think that, again, Nikola Jokic, just the form that he's in right now, like you mentioned there, Chris, I think that, again, he should have a big night here for the Denver Nuggets. So I can't fade a former MVP here. Again, odds on MVP favorite right now for this season as well. So Nikola Jokic to go over on his points. I definitely love it. I love that we're starting to see these clips on Twitter here, Chris, about Nikola Jokic and his personality. I don't know if you saw a lot of it from the All-Star weekend with him and Luka. I think that was a little fun to watch, but I think he's starting to interact with the media a little bit more as well. I think it's really fun to see. It's a little dry, but it's still funny to watch.
It's refreshing, It's refreshing because it's not like anybody else, right? He doesn't want his phone in his hand. He doesn't like this stuff. Like, it's so funny.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it's absolutely funny to see. And it almost like it translates to his game on the court where he makes it look so effortless, and it's just so easy for Nikola Jokic. So yeah, definitely get beyond Nikola Jokic here tonight against the Sacramento Kings. All right, Chris, before we get over to my next player prop here, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NBA season with Hall of Fame Bets, a sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NBA and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets Revolutionary Parlay Optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, let's keep it rolling here, Chris. I'll go over to the other European man, Luka. We talked about it at the top of the show. The dude's just playing out of his mind right now. We talk a lot about the birthday games on the NBA pod, but I just think that Luka is in a matchup here tonight that I really don't think there's a guy that's going to be able to really limit what Luka's going to be able to do here tonight in Toronto. They're coming off of 2 straight losses. I know everybody saw this the shot that Max Strus had last night that put an absolute dagger in the heart of the Mavericks, but Mavericks have done really well coming off of a loss on the road. I believe now they're 8-1 against the spread in that span. But it's been led by Luka, right? Luka over the last 5 games, averaging a hair above 30.5 points per game, 9.2 assists. Earlier this season against the Toronto Raptors, he did have 31 points and 8 assists in that game. So, and it's also incredible to see that on the road in particular this season, Chris, Luka's averaging 34.5 points on the road with 8.8 assists. So, I'm going to expect Luka to continue doing Luka things here. I'm looking at his points and his assists to go over the number of 41 and a 41 and a half here. Also dug a little deeper. Toronto over the last 7 days is allowing the second most assists to the point guard position, which is around 9.3 assists per game. But we know Luka can step into 12, 13 assists per night, and we know how incredible of a scorer that he is. So I'll be interested to see who does actually match up with Luka in this game, if it is Scotty Barnes or if it is somebody else. Also did see that Jakob Poeltl is questionable for this game, so whatever rim protection they did have with Jakob Poeltl, he's probably not going to play in this game. I know he's dealing with an ankle and shoe, so I expect Kyrie and more importantly, Luka to get to the basket at will. We know he gets a friendly whistle as well as being a superstar in this league. So I'm looking at Luka points and assists to go over 41.5 here tonight against the Toronto Raptors here. Chris, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no way I could talk you off of it. Like you said, Toronto. One of the things that you didn't mention, is that Toronto is playing extremely fast. They're trying to get out. I think they're like number 1 and number 2 in fast break frequency as well. Like they're trying to get out. They're trying to run as fast as they possibly can, and that makes sense, right? You got a game plan against a team that's coming on the second leg of a back-to-back that played a hard-fought game last night. That just means that if they get out and run, that just means it's going to be more opportunities for Luka in this offense as well. Their defense hasn't really been that great, even though they have covered 4 straight spreads, and they are 3-0 in their last 3, but they just gave up 121 points to Atlanta Hawks. You mentioned, giving up a bunch of assists. DeJounte Murray had 7 assists, and Trae Young had 7 assists in that game. And we know how much Luka's going to have the ball in his hands, so I don't have to beat a dead horse in this one, but only way I would look for Luka, what he's able to do. And like you said, I think you probably do put Scotty Barnes on him, at the start. Yeah. It makes the most sense. Outside of Scotty Barnes, who else on this team? You can't put Quickly on him. Like no way. You can't put Gary Trent Jr. on him. Like it could get really, really bad, And even if you do put Scotty Barnes on him, I mean, he's really just like setting a pick away from being able to get whatever matchup it is that he wants. So off back-to-back losses as well, probably got a real bad taste in their mouth. After Strus hit that 56-foot game winner last night, I would only be looking for Luka to go over whatever it is. I think you could even throw the rebounds in there as well. I did see Jakob Poeltl did participate in shoot around. Okay. Even if he does go Munaf, I don't think that he'll be 100% dealing with that ankle injury. So, yeah, I would agree. Luka to the moon.
There we go. Yeah, birthday game for Luka here tonight. So hopefully he does get over his points and assists, points, rebounds, and assists. Play his triple-double if you want. I think this should be a big night for Luka here tonight against the Toronto Raptors. All right, Chris, take us to the player prop number 3, my friend. What do you got?
So same game. Let's stay there. I'm looking on the opposite side. I like Quickly. I'm looking at his threes. It's a tad
Yep.
bit juice, but I think it's playable up to 3.5 as well. So 2.5 is minus 140. It's typically the most juice I'll lay, but I think it's a really good spot for Quickly in this game, in my opinion. So he's been on fire from distance. 3 for 7 against Indiana in his last game, 6 for 11 against Atlanta. 5 for 8 against the Brooklyn Nets since the All-Star break in the 3 games. In the month of February, he's actually making 3.1 threes on 7.5 attempts. But over the last 5 games, however, he's actually shot 26 threes. So, we really just need him to make 3 in this spot. And in 3 games since the All-Star break, you look at Dallas, they've taken a huge step back defensively from the three-point line. They're actually allowing the second most threes to be made at 16.3 per game. They're also bottom 10 in opponent three-point attempts, so they're giving up a bunch of attempts, and 29th in opponent three-point percentage at 43.8. So now, on the second leg of a back-to-back with travel from Cleveland to Toronto, doesn't set up well for them in this spot defensively. I've talked about, how Toronto wants to get out and run. And then also just kind of looking at the shot zones as well. If a lot of Quickly threes have come from above the break threes, 8 attempts per contest and 4.3 makes since the All-Star break. That's 54.2%. Both lead the team in attempts and makes. And Dallas, they're actually allowing 42.5% over the last 3 games at the above the break three, which ranks them 26th. And they're allowing the 7th most attempts from that range as well, 29, which actually ranks 23rd also since the All-Star break. Toronto they score a lot in transition and a lot in the paint, but since Dallas made that trade, the defense has actually been really good at protecting the paint. You get Daniel Gafford down there now, and you got Derek Lively back, even though he's wearing the mask. He's been effective. So I think that, because of that, I think Toronto will have to shoot more threes. I think they'll have to take more threes because of, Dallas's presence on the inside. So why not be Quickly? I like him over the 2.5 3-point makes here,
Yeah, this was the one I was on the other. Was it they played the Atlanta Hawks the other night? I believe it was for Emmanuel Quickly. And it was that the market hadn't caught up to it. I know they've adjusted the vig a little bit on Emmanuel Quickly's threes here, but you mentioned, right, he's getting the attempts up. He's averaging 8 attempts over his last 5 games. He's averaging 3.2 makes. He's done this in 3 straight games as well. I like the point that you made about the Dallas Mavericks defense, right? That they're probably trying to suffocate the paint here. But we've seen whatever went on in the practice after the All-Star break for the Toronto Raptors, the offense has been very, very good, right? They've scored 121 plus points in 3 straight games since the All-Star break. They've won all 3. They've covered all 3. And it's been about the pace, like you mentioned. And I went back and looked, right? Top 7 in pace over the last 5 games. Sorry, top 5 in top 7 in pace over the last 5 games and the last 3 games as well, post All-Star break. So they're going to be pushing the pace here. And rightfully so, right? Because you have a tired Dallas Mavericks team that's going to be on a back-to-back situation here. And again, this line is saying that it should come down to the wire here, with the Dallas favored by, I believe it was 2.5 the last time I saw it here. So Quickly is definitely getting up the shot attempts. He's gotten up 16, 20, and 16 attempts from the field over the last 3 games, 8, 11, and 7 from three-point land. So definitely can get behind Emmanuel Quickly here to have a good shooting night and continue what he's been doing post All-Star break for the Toronto Raptors. All right, for my last player prop here, I am going to go to that game between the Bulls and the Cavaliers here tonight. Cavs, like we mentioned, had that incredible walk-off win against the Dallas Mavericks last night. And I'm looking at Donovan Mitchell in this game here. And I know I'm going with a lot of star players here tonight, but Donovan Mitchell, for whatever reason, either has some type of personal vendetta against his against his Chicago Bulls team. But he's been absolutely incredible. His points prop right now is sitting at 25.5. Also on the season, he's averaging 28.2 points per game. Last 5 games, he's at around 24.4 points per game. But it's more in particular on what he's done against the Chicago Bulls recently. We all remember the 71-point game that he did have against them last year, back on January 2nd. But I'm going to quickly read off what he's done over the last 10 games or so against the Chicago Bulls team. And this also dates back to his time in Utah. So 30, 26, 30, 37, 32. He had a game of 15, 71, 29, and then 2 games this season, 34 and 30. against the Chicago Bulls. So whether it's a matchup thing that they're not able to really cover Donovan Mitchell or whatever the case might be, I do think that he should have another good scoring night here tonight against the Chicago Bulls. Like I mentioned, he's had a lot of success against. Last night he had 31 on 11 of 20 shooting. We know the shot attempt, the shot volume is going to be there. The usage rate is going to be there as well for a guy like Donovan Mitchell. So give me the points here for Donovan Mitchell over 25 and a half here tonight against the Chicago Bulls here, Chris.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. If he, like you said, I'm not sure if it's a personal vendetta either. I remember watching a couple of the games before, because this is the third matchup, or the fourth matchup, I think. I wouldn't remember watching a couple of the games, because these two teams have played recently, right before the All-Star break. Cleveland almost got upset at home by the Chicago Bulls team. I think they were able to pull it out 123 to 121, but he absolutely went crazy in that game, And then I also think the other thing I want to mention is Caruso actually left yesterday's game. We know he's their best defender. I know he came back. I think he did return yesterday. But if not even if he's not able to go, he can participate. But not being 100% against a guy like Donovan Mitchell is absolutely crucial to your defense. So a lot of great angles to support Donovan Mitchell going over him. I like that look a lot.
All right, so that is 3 player props each here. Chris, any honorable mentions you want to throw out there?
I kind of wanted to get there. I'm probably not. I'm gonna lay off. I wanted to get there with Westbrook. I just feel like, in some form of way, right? Maybe he hasn't been playing well. I looked into the numbers. I wanted to get there with his rebounds and assist line. The reason why I didn't was because I think he's only cashed in like 2 of the last 10. But of course, with no Paul George, I feel like he can step up. It's always going to be added motivation because he's playing against the Lakers as well. So they'll need somebody. It's a lot of usage to be able to step up in this spot. So I really like Westbrook, but couldn't quite get there. I also think that it's something to keep in mind. I told you all of the guys that are listed as questionable for the Toronto. For the Pelicans today. Pelicans will be second leg of back-to-back playing in Indiana, of course, and all of those guys are questionable. Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Zion. If they don't play, gotta look at Hawkins. Gotta look at Trey Murphy props. Those will be the guys. I know Indiana does a really great job at the three-point line, but that's what the Pelicans do if those guys don't play. So really hard for me to kind of handicap that game just based on those big guys not knowing their status, being unknown right now. So I guess I'll say just the Westbrook look, but probably won't end up getting there. And that was that was probably the only other one. What do you like? Anything else you like?
Yeah, so one more I want to mention here was going back to that Cavs and the Bulls game. So the last time these two teams matched up, I'm not sure if you saw that Andre Drummond actually started in that game, and I guess that's to kind of combat with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in that game, and they threw Andre Drummond out there, and he did have 10 rebounds, I think, in like 22 minutes. So obviously that number's not out right now for Andre Drummond for his rebounding prop, but that's something I'm going to wait closer to game time when those the role players and the bench players they do throw those props out there. So that's going to be one I'm going to keep an eye on for. And again, if we see him starting in this game again for the Chicago Bulls going up against the Cavs, I think that's a good spot to get on Andre Drummond's rebounds because we know, he's an absolute monster rebounder in the basketball. And I'll throw one more out there. Anthony Edwards on his steals and blocks to go over the number of 1.5. We know Anthony Edwards, again, there are in a back-to-back situations. Not sure if he's going to play tonight or not, but in the case he does play, he's had at least 3 steals and blocks combined in 4 out of the last 5 games for the Minnesota Timberwolves. That number is at 1.5 combined of steals and blocks right now, around minus 125 over on DraftKings right now. So I'm going to dig a little bit more into it, but I think that this Memphis team there, with their young guys that they have out there, they're a very turnover-prone team. And we know how Minnesota has been defensively this season. One of the best right up there with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye out for if Anthony Edwards does in fact play here tonight, and we'll go from there. Also for Andre Drummond here as well. So those are the 2 I'm going to throw out there. Chris, let's get over to our best bets here for tonight, and then we'll wrap it up for this NBA Propcast. But man, what do you got for your best bet?
I really like the quickly play. If I, like I said, I know it's juice, but even at 3.5, man, I just kind of feel like I gave out the numbers, won't regurgitate those, but Dallas, defense already struggling from the 3-point line. Now you get them in the second leg of a back-to-back. They're unrested, having to travel out of the country. Technically, I like quickly. I like the transition. We talked about them being top 7 in pace. Think they're gonna try to run this Dallas team. The rub the break 3 should be there. So give me quickly over his 2.5 3-point mix. I'll take the vig. It's only vig. You only drink it, if you lose. So we're not gonna lose this one. Give me quickly over his 2.5 3-point mix here.
Yeah, I love it. All right, for my best bet, I'm happy that we were both on Kawhi Leonard here tonight, so I'll give that out as my best bet. You can chop it up 3 different ways. If you just want to take his points over, if you want to take rebounds over, if you want to take rebounds, points and rebounds over, I can talk you off any of those. Talked about the shot volume that he's going to get without Paul George. I mentioned also the stats with Kawhi Leonard without Paul George in the lineup this season. And again, this is going to be a game where Kawhi Leonard's going to get up for, right? Like I mentioned, that the Clippers haven't been playing particularly well since the All-Star break. So I think that's a good spot here between these two teams. And I think that they do want to get the season split here at least, because the Lakers have won, I believe, 2 out of the 3 matchups thus far this season between these two squads here. So I'll go with Kawhi Leonard, points and rebounds over, and then points over as well. So however you guys want to chop it up. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of the NBA Propcast with the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Chris, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we get out of here?
No, man, enjoy the games. It's a nice, simple like little 6-game slate after we had mayhem yesterday. I think it was 11 or 12 games. And enjoy the night, because this is the calm before the storm. I already looked ahead. I think we got 11 more games tomorrow. So enjoy the games, everyone. Bet responsibly, of course. Definitely check us out. Leave us a 5-star review, 5-star over wherever you check out your podcast. And best of luck to everybody tonight.
Yeah, 100%. We'll try to be more consistent about the Propcast here, and that's some fault of my own, because Chris is always down to pod no matter what. So we'll try to go like Wednesdays and Thursdays, at least twice a week for the NBA pod for the rest of the season. And we'll also carry it over to the NBA playoffs as well. So again, getting closer and closer to the end of the season before we know what the NBA playoffs are going to be here. Make sure you follow Chris on Twitter. That's at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. We'll talk to you guys on Friday. It was always going to be after the NBA regular betting picks show, so look out for us. Stay tuned then. But till then, good luck with your bets here tonight. Let's break these books off and let it ride.